Namaste. We were talking yesterday, and I'd like to continue this talk because it's central to the whole spiritual path. The ego, what it is, how to get rid of it. You see, God does everything, but it is from a center outward. And so it's not as though he were a carpenter doing a table. He has to begin outward from the inside. The trunk of a tree is growth outward. You see the lines, each year there's a new line growing. Every human being, you grow from a little sperm and ovum, begins to create the embryo and then the body. Everything begins there, and that center is in this ego, medulla oblongata. And it's here that you have to go. This is the point in the lake at which you have to drill if you are to go down through that into the water. Therefore, it's extremely important, and I'd like to give you a few little hints that will help you to overcome this sense of ego. I remember I was at a big function many years ago in Virginia, and it was somebody who was was announcing to the world that he would start a community. Well, he never did get it started. He had me come, and he had a number of other famous speakers in America come. But I was the least famous because I never traveled around and so on. But the only thing about me was that I was the only one there who had actually started a community and therefore knew what he was talking about. Well, anyway, I invited all these other famous speakers out to dinner one night at a restaurant. And I was so intrigued to find that, after all, I was the host, I was paying for the meal and everything. Nobody talked to me. They were all talking to each other. And they treated me as sort of an also-ran. And I was far from being insulted or humiliated or offended. I was absolutely delighted to be a non-entity. This is a good practice when people disparage you, when they insult you, when they don't show you the respect that you think is your due. Instead of being offended, say thank you, because I know I'm not this ego. Any reminder of that is a blessing, not a misfortune. Don't constantly try to defend your honor, as you think of it, which is other people's opinion and the honor they give you. Just don't get excited when people talk to you. When they insult you, thank them. I remember I was at one function and there was this young woman I was talking to afterwards in the crowd, and I asked her, I asked her her name, and she told me. And then she said, well, what is your name? And I said, Swami Kriyananda. Swami Kriyananda, but you're famous. I said, well, maybe, but why that word but? Well, all the other famous people I know seemed important. And I was so absolutely pleased and thrilled to be considered unimportant. I like to be unimportant because I don't want this constant reminder, what about me? What about me? Well, I'm important, listen to me. This is for what about me first, me first. It's such a waste of time. This world is just it's a pleasure house. Everything is wonderful if you can just get rid of that one constant I. I don't like this. I don't like that. Oh, this is mine. No, that's not mine, but I'd like to have it if I could get it. All the thoughts that people have, all their delusions trace back to that single center, I. And if you can just tell yourself that if people praise you, just feel he's the doer. Don't take it to yourself. Don't feel, well, yes, I did it. Always say he did it. Think in your mind, he did it. Don't do it for show. Humility is not a show. But this isn't even humility. I remember one time that same friend of mine, Bengali friend, who was talking to Master about him being God. He said at one point, well, that's just your humility, sir, that makes you talk that way. Master's answer was, how can there be humility when there is no consciousness of self? Humility, true humility, is not self-abasement. It's not putting your head on the ground and throwing dust on your head. That's concentrating on your head, on the ground, and on dust. What you want to do is forget yourself. So that one trick of it I've found, because I've never, fortunately, with God's grace, never been nervous when lecturing. It's considered to be one of the things that people are most afraid of is having to lecture in public. My trick has been two things. One is that I am what I am. And if I'm a fool and people know it, what does it matter? If they don't know it, I'm still a fool. And if I'm not a fool and they know it, well, what does that matter anyway? The majority is usually wrong. The majority is usually wrong. Minority has at least a chance of being right. And so don't think that you matter at all. And then the other trick that I have found is that instead of thinking, what are they thinking of me, think, what am I giving to them? The more you give energy from yourself, the more, it's an interesting thing. My guru used to say, don't go to restaurants, eat in restaurants, but if you must, surround yourself with companions, with friends. Because when you're in an eating mode, you're in an absorbing mode. And when you're in a restaurant by yourself, you're absorbing also the vibrations of that restaurant. It's important that you absorb the right things and not the wrong things. So when you're in a giving mode, you're not absorbing. And so when you're giving to people, you don't worry about what they think of you. So think rather in terms of what you're putting out to them. Think in terms of what you're teaching them, what you have to share with them. Never teach, share. I never have taught anybody anything. But I'm eager to share to share what little I know, to share my experience, to share my training, to share what I might have to give. But I don't think of it as mine. I'm grateful for the opportunity. That feeling of gratitude, the more you're giving, the more you don't think of yourself, the more you think of your audience. One trick that I had as a lecturer I found very helpful was to think that in my audience, they were not listening. It was my guru in those forms. Somebody said to me, well, how can you see your guru in other people? Well, I found it works wonderfully because that same divine spark that is in everybody, seeking God, everybody is looking for that bliss and they don't know it. And the divine in everybody is the guru in everybody, trying to lead them out of it. So that was the guru that I saw in all of them. And in lecturing to them and talking to my guru, I never felt that I was talking down to him. I was talking from him to him. These little tricks are very helpful. When you're going among people, don't worry what people are thinking of you. Don't worry if they... So many people are so awkward about... I know this friend of mine was a teenager, and he said to his mother, he's always worried about what his friends are thinking of him. She said to him, Roddy, don't think that way. They're only worried about what you're thinking of them. Everybody's only thinking of what he's receiving. The more you can be in a giving mode, the more you can tell yourself that anything you do, you've done a beautiful painting, it's not mine. I have really found it to be true, and I think it's worth sharing with the world. The less you feel you are the doer, the more you can do. The more you can feel he is doing it through me, the more you can do. Does that mean then that you just sit back and let him do it? No. I remember again talking about Hollywood Church. One time I was standing up there on the platform and I remembered that my guru had said, when you talk, let God talk through you. So I thought, well, let me make a little experiment. So I'll just shut up and let God talk. I stood there, completely silent. A minute passed by. 2 minutes passed by. Mind you, when you're standing on a lecture platform, there are 100 or more people there waiting for you to say something, and you don't speak. Well, they think you're frozen with terror. No, I was perfectly comfortable. I was just waiting for God to say something. And a friend of mine in the audience, he was perspiring with fear for me. But finally I just decided, well, God is not going to speak through me. So I will have to do the effort, and I have to understand this teaching correctly. As my guru taught, I will reason, I will, I will act, but guide thou my reason, will, and activity to the right path in everything. So we have to enter into the picture. It's not that we just step out of the side and he does everything. God will not help the world. We have to help the world. God made this world, but he made it through instruments. He didn't do it deliberately, directly. He did it through higher angels, higher powers. They are those powers that have brought everything into existence. On the causal plane, actually, my guru said that beings who have reached that can actually manifest universes. God does everything through instruments. You have to try to be his instrument, but you have to act. So it's sort of like running a race and doing tricks along the way. It's not an easy thing, but you can't sit back and let him do it. You have to do it. Here's what I've found that is helpful. I receive the guidance, let us say figuratively, to go north. Well, that isn't enough. Let's say that the goal of religion is to reach the equator, the center in yourself, in other words. And so, human nature being what it is, you go to the equator, but you don't stop, you keep going south. People in the northern hemisphere are told to go south. People in the southern hemisphere are told to go north. And so, the people who are in the north are going into the southern hemisphere people are coming north, and the people in the north saying, no, you're supposed to go south, and the people in the south saying, no, you're supposed to go north. And so you've got all the arguments that occur in religion. The whole purpose of religion is to take you to your own center in yourself. And so feel that everything that you are doing, you have to do, but he has to do it through you by activating it through you. So you go north because you felt the guidance to go north, but keep that channel open. Don't say, all right, it's finished, now I'm going that way. At the next corner, that same guidance may say, now turn right, now turn left. So always keep listening in your heart, because that guidance changes from moment to moment according to your needs. This is why great gurus teach their disciples differently, according to their own particular temperament. It's not just one teaching for another. And this is the reason why you need a guru, a living guru, not just a scripture, not just something written. You can challenge that and it won't answer you. You challenge a guru and he'll give you your answer. And an enlightened master can guide you rightly. So it's extremely important. The first thing on the spiritual path, once you know that you want God, once you've really given your life to God, then you must find somebody who can lead you to him. Well, it seems like a hopeless task. How are you going to find this pearl in a pile of coke? How do you find it? God comes into the picture, and I can tell you from my own experience, I didn't even know what a guru was. I didn't even know the meaning of the word guru. I was in New York. My father had been posted to Egypt as the exploration manager for Esso there. He was an oil geologist. My mother was to go to him and join him there, and I put her on the ship. The very day I put her on that ship, I was free. I walked uptown New York, took the subway first and walked around uptown New York, and I came upon Autobiography of a Yogi. Well, I wasn't going to buy that book at first. First, I was very attracted to the picture on the cover. It was so familiar to me. But then I opened it up and it said, dedicated to Luther Burbank, an American saint. I said, what a ridiculous thing. How could an American ever be a saint? I didn't even know what a saint was, but I couldn't think of America as producing anybody spiritual. I had been living in a materialistic family. That's all the kind of people I met. After I came to my guru, I found that many Americans are deeply spiritual, but that wasn't my experience at that point. So I put that book down and I bought the Bhagavad Gita. And a few days later, I was in town again, and I was going down to the subway, and I won't go into all that story of why, but this thought came to me of the autobiography, and this voice inside me was saying, you have to read that book. And I said, dedicated to Luther Burbank, that's absurd. And I said, I'm not going to buy any more. I'm too intellectual. I've got to save my money, so if I'm going to be a hermit in South America, and I've got to stop spending my money, and I won't buy it. And I started to go across the street to get into the subway when an actual force turned me left toward Fifth Avenue. I was absolutely amazed. God pushed me left. I didn't make that decision. I said, there's got to be something important here for me. I know this means something to me now. And I was very excited because I had no idea where that power came from. And I bought that book, and it changed my life. And I took the next bus across the country, as I told you before, and I became his disciple. But God took a hand in that scene. If my parents had been in America, this was all too new. I don't know that I would have had the strength of will to leave them and take this completely unknown path. But it was God's will that I come. When the disciple is ready, then the Guru appears. And this is a fact. And the Guru came to me because I was very ready. So remember, the most important thing is God. God said, my Guru said, they're not my disciples, they're God's disciples. Any Guru who says, I am God, is wrong. Any Guru who says, I am your Guru, if he's speaking with wisdom, he knows it's God who is the Guru through him. Because yes, you need a human Guru, but you need God through that Guru. Joy to you.